This is my prediction of how François Fillon will not win the presidential election race in France. So back in November, you can see that he was the favourite to win the French Conservative presidential ticket. So Fillon won 44% of votes in Sunday's first round of voting for the centre-right's nomination. He faces a second round of voting against another former Prime Minister, Alain Juppé, who trailed him by 15 points. Former President Sarkozy came third and, after being eliminated, endorsed Fillon for the second round vote next Sunday. The outcome adds uncertainty about the next year's presidential election, likely to be decided in a runoff against the anti-immigration Eurosceptic National Front leader Le Pen in May. There is, though, no clear evidence that Fillon would fare worse than her as would Juppé. Well, that was in November. Just so we know more about him, still from November, the next day, how Fillon became the French right's new hope. This is their man. He's going to do it. François Fillon, the former Prime Minister who in a 35-year political career has come to embody the very essence of the French political establishment, will be running against an anti-establishment character. That's a good idea, isn't it? But I love that he shouted to the well-dressed, largely elderly crowd, "We have to change the system." Oh, what is it you'd like? It's, Thatcherite changes. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't necessary sometimes, but I don't think that Thatcherite-style changes are what is actually on the forefront of people's minds, because Thatcher's changes came after the trade unions had an iron grip over the country. There was rubbish piled up in the streets, people were reduced to like 3-day work weeks, things were going badly, it was a spiral downwards and Thatcher had to do something. I don't think the trade unions are quite... to be fair, the trade unions are powerful in France, but I don't think they're the primary problem on everyone's mind. But Fillon, an amateur racing driver and unrepentant Margaret Thatcher fan, has broken ranks with the traditionally statist line of the French right, and has promised a radical shock for France. Tax cuts, public spending cuts, slashing public sector jobs, and breaking trade union power. Well, that does sound Thatcherite, but I don't think that's really what the main concern is. He says, France is more right-wing than it has ever been. He said, positioning himself as the only candidate who could fully tap into that mood. It's Fillon's social conservatism and family values, including his private views on abortion, and his drive to limit adoption rights for same-sex couples, that have been the focus of bitter second-round runoff to win the right's presidential nomination. Yes, these are not popular political positions to hold. They're in fact very old-school, conservative, traditional positions that really aren't very useful when you're trying to be a president or a prime minister in the modern world. But if you can't let go of it, you'll probably end up finding that the public isn't that interested in your own personal brand of bigotry. But by February 2017, the pressure builds on François Fillon to quit the French contest. Uh-oh. Former favourite cries foul, but points to defeat in first round of presidential race. Fillon, the French presidential candidate, faced mounting pressure on Friday to stand down as the centre-right nominee over accusations that his family received public money for the work they did not do. What a fucking surprise. An establishment candidate is wildly corrupt. Unbelievable. Who could have predicted this? Police carried out searches at the Senate on Friday, looking for information that alleged payments of tens of thousands of euros made to Mr. Fillon's 2 children when he was senator between 2005-2007, prosecutors said. Some in his own party openly criticised Mr. Fillon, the favourite in the race only a week ago. Rashida Dati, former Justice Minister, told RMC Radio that the candidate does not have the unanimous backing of the Republican Party. Oh dear. Latest polls show that Mr. Fillon, a right-wing admirer of Margaret Thatcher, who is set to be the unassailable frontrunner to win both rounds of the election in April and May, would be knocked out in the first round. The survey on Friday showed that 61% of French people think he should stand down as the candidate, even before the election. A move that would be unprecedented in 6 decades of politics in France and plunge his centre-right Republicans into party into turmoil. Yes, it would be bad. He has been knocked by 2 weeks of revelations by a French satirical newspaper alleging that his British wife Penelope received more than 800,000 euros of taxpayers' money for a fake aid role. He denied this and says he's the victim of a professional plot. Still, state prosecutors opened a preliminary inquiry into misuse of state funds last week. The Fillons were questioned by the fraud office, and a series of new claims followed, including those about similar payments to his 2 children. Oh dear. French presidential election. Majority urged François Fillon to quit the race as corruption police raid the Senate. We've just covered it, but it's not a small number of people who want him to go. But the worst part about Fillon is the fact that 90% of French people believe that he is dishonest, at least according to a poll. According to a survey, doubts of Fillon's honesty persist even among his core supporters who back the Republican Party he belongs to and who mostly still intend to vote for him, with 2/3 among them thinking their candidate is not an honest man. This is great. You might think, oh well, I mean, Wilders losing the Netherlands is indicative of the rollback of the right-wing populism in Europe, and I'm sorry, I don't think it is. I think it's just that Wilders, as I said in the video I did about it, he couldn't win. Even if the people had voted for him, the chances of him being able to form a majority were astronomical. I mean, and this is interesting as well, that the first round of articles that came out after Wilders' quote-unquote loss, Rutte defeats the far right. The far right's in recession. Oh, it's all over. It's all over for the far right. And it's like, okay, but Wilders still made gains. He got an extra, 5 or 6 seats in the parliament. He's still one of the major players in Dutch politics. He's bigger now than he has ever been. It's just you thought he was going to thrash you after Brexit and Trump, which were winner-take-all elections, whereas in the Netherlands, that's not how their elections go. But in France, it is. And, of course, if we look at the opinion polling for the French presidential election for 2017, who's consistently at the top? It ain't you, Fillon. It ain't even Macron. No, it's Le Pen. And on any given day, you can turn on the news, see the latest terrorist attack in France, and easily understand why.